So Hare Krishna, and I'd like to thank Chaitanya Vallabha Prabhu for giving me the opportunity to do this service, and I'd also thank you all for coming here today on Easter. So, do we have any newcomers? Oh, one.
You put your hands up, right? Oh, you're joking.
Alright, so we're all familiar, right? So that's nice. It's not your first time. And so today I'll be speaking on the Srimad Bhagavatam verse, which is the first canto, 7th chapter, verse number 25.
I'll put it up.
Thank you. So we just chant the incantations to get the blessings. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What's the verse?
Ready?
What's the verse?
It's SB 1.17.25.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just wait for that to come on the screen. Okay, great. So we do the word to word first, and then we'll go through the verse. So, Idanim, at the present moment, Dharma, O personality of religion, Pada, leg, Te, of you, Satyam, truthfulness, Nirvatayet, hobbling along somehow or other, Yataha, whereby, Tam, that, Jikrishati, trying to destroy, Adharma, the personality of irreligion. I am this. Anritena, by deceit. Edita, flourishing. Kali, quarrel personified. Yeah, forgive me for my Sanskrit. Sure I have. But Idanim Dhamma Padaste Satyam Nivatayetata Tam Jigrishati Adamoyam Anite Naitita Kaliya Idanim Dhamma Padaste
Idaninam dharmapadaste
Satyam Nivatayetata
Satyam nivartayedyataha
Tam Jigrishati Adamoyam
Tam jighrakshitya dharmoyam
Anrite Naidita Kali
Anrutyena idhitah kalihi
Idanim Dhamma Padaste
Idanim dharmapadaste
Satyam Nirvatayajata
Satyam nirvartayedyataha
Tam Jigrishati Adamoyam
Tam jighrakshitya dharmoyam
Anrite Naidita Kali
Anrutyena idhitah kalihi Idanim dharmapadaste Satyam nirvartayedyataha Tam jighrakshitya dharmoyam Anrutena idhitah kalihi
Mataji's? Okay. So you are now standing on one leg only.
You're now. You want us to repeat?
Yes.
You are now standing on one leg only,
Which is your truthfulness.
which is your truthfulness,
And you are somehow or other
and you are somehow or other
hobbling along.
hobbling along.
But quarrel personified,
But quarrel personified,
Kali, flourishing by deceit,
flourishing by deceit,
is also trying to destroy that leg.
is
also trying to destroy that leg.
Purport by His Divine Grace Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
The principles of religion do not stand on some dogmas or man-made formulas, but they stand on four primary regulative observances, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. The mass of people must be taught to practice these principles from childhood. Austerity means to accept voluntary things, which may not be very comfortable for the body, but are conducive for spiritual realization. For example, fasting. Fasting twice or 4 times a month is a sort of austerity which may be voluntarily accepted for spiritual realization only, and not for any other purposes, political or otherwise. Fastings which are meant not for self-realization, but for some other purposes are condemned in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, verse 5 and 6. Similarly, cleanliness is necessary both for the mind and for the body. Simply bodily cleanliness may help to some extent, but cleanliness of the mind is necessary, and it is affected by glorifying the Supreme Lord. No one can cleanse the accumulated mental dust without glorifying the Supreme Lord. A godless civilization cannot cleanse the mind because it has no idea of God, and for this simple reason, people under such a civilization cannot have good qualifications. However, they may be materially equipped. We have to see things by their resultant action. The resultant action of human civilization in the age of Kali is dissatisfaction. So everyone is anxious to get peace of mind. This peace of mind was complete in the Satya age because of the existence of the above mentioned attributes of the human beings. Gradually these attributes have diminished in the Treta Yuga to 3/4, in the Dwapara to half, and in this age of Kali to 1/4, which is also gradually diminishing on account of prevailing untruthfulness. By pride, either artificial or real, the resultant action of austerity is spoiled. By too much affection for female association, cleanliness is spoiled. By too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. And by too much lying propaganda, truthfulness is spoiled. The revival of Bhagavad Dharma can save human civilization from falling prey to evils of all description. Haribol. Actually, I got the wrong verse here. It was another verse I was meant to, but it's the same context. But because this is the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is actually an introduction, and it explains the beginning. So first of all, we need to understand there are 4 yugas. Is there anyone who doesn't understand what yuga means? The word yuga? Millennium, yeah. So it's like era. Yuga is an era. So there's Satya Yuga, right? There's Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga, right? And we all know in Treta Yuga, there's Lord Ramachandra makes his appearance, right? In Dwapara Yuga, Lord Krishna himself descends. And in Kali Yuga, every 1,000 Kali Yugas, Lord Chaitanya descends as well. So now we are in Kali Yuga. And it, like in the verse, it's been said that through each yuga, the principles of religion decline by 1/4 in each yuga, right? So it starts with King Parikshit, right? No, actually, let me go back to Dwapara Yuga. So when Krishna descends in Dwapara Yuga, is everyone familiar with the Mahabharata? Yeah, you heard about it. So there was an epic war, Mahabharata, and in the middle of a battlefield, Krishna spoke about the Bhagavad Gita, right? And he spoke to Arjuna, who is one of the greatest warriors. And when the time came when all these great personalities, they left the earth. And as soon as Krishna left, a personality appeared, and he's called Kali. Kali means it's an age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So it's a yuga, but it's also a person. As soon as Krishna disappeared, he appeared. Right? And one day, King Parikshit, so King Parikshit is a descendant of Arjuna. Arjuna had a son, he was called Abhimanyu, and Parikshit is the son of Abhimanyu. So Parikshit was the king of the world, and he was conquering the world, because this is what kings do, conquer the world. So King Parikshit, he was traveling, and when he came to a place, and he seen one personality, and this personality was posing as a king. He was dressed up as a king, he was impersonating a king. This is the personality of Kali. So he was dressed up as a king, and he was beating the legs of a bull and a cow. And he was beating them, and this bull was standing on one leg. So 3 of his legs were gone. He was standing on one leg, and the cow was crying, and she was really stressed, and she was actually hungry and hankering for some grass. But Kali was torturing this cow and this bull. And the scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, said that this cow is actually Mother Earth, Bhumi. She took the shape of a cow, and the bull is actually Dharma. Dharma is actually the principles of religion, right? And here it's said that the principles of religion, like if we take a look at the other verse, it also says, you are standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you're somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. So actually these 4 legs of Dharma, they represent 4 things. So they represent austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. And these are the 4 pillars of spiritual life. Right? So for example, if we have a look in this temple, there's a pillar in the middle here, right? And there's like structures that's holding whatever's built on top. Even we have a basement, and it's the same thing. So we need a strong foundation so we can build anything on top. So similarly, it is said for spiritual life, the foundation of spiritual life, what is it? Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. And now this personality, Kali, he came and he broke like 3 legs from his bull, which means austerity is gone, cleanliness is gone, mercy is gone. So in the age of Kali Yuga, we're only left with truthfulness. So this is what this personality was doing, and he was beating on that one leg. So this truthfulness, it's only here for the next 10,000 years, and after that Kali is going to take that away as well. So when King Parikshit seen this, King Parikshit was a Kshatriya, like a Kshatriya means a warrior, right? And they would stand for justice, they would stand for what's right. Even nowadays we've got soldiers and things like that, but they mostly respond to what their leader says. It's not necessarily based on righteousness. It's mostly based on orders. Even though they might disagree with the order they're being given, they still need to go ahead with it. But back in those days, the Kshatriyas, they would really stand up for righteousness. So he's seeing this unrighteousness happening, Kali's beating on the bull and the cow. He immediately took out his sword, right? And he was going to kill Kali. And Kali, he was not an ordinary human being. He was like a subtle personality, like a Dhanava or like a demigod. But even regardless of this, King Parikshit was so powerful that Kali was scared. And Kali, he surrendered at the right time. So he just said, okay, I surrender. You know, and it is a principle of Kshatriyas. If someone surrenders unto them, they have to give mercy. This is one of the codes, right? So then eventually King Parikshit told Kali Yuga, okay, so since you surrendered to me, yeah, I'm going to spare your life, but however, you cannot stay in this kingdom, right? There's no place for you here. But Kali Yuga, he pleaded with King Parikshit, and he said, look, you know, I need somewhere to be as well. So then King Parikshit gave him 5 places where he could be. And he told Kali, okay, you can go ahead and you can live where there is intoxication. Does anyone know what's the next place Kali can live? Yes, where there is gold. What else?
Gambling.
Where there is gambling. So we got 3 now, yeah? And what else? Where there's illicit sex. Right?
Meat eating.
And then someone said meat eating. Yeah, so these are the 5 places where Kali can live. But however, one thing is, during the reign of King Parikshit, he was such a great king and he was following the principles of Dharma. So these things didn't really exist. So Kali didn't really have anywhere to go. Right? Kali didn't really have anywhere to go. But under the influence of Kali, so one day King Parikshit, he went to hunt. And he felt really tired, really hungry, and really thirsty. Right? And then he came to this place. There was a sage who was meditating. And he was called Shamika Rishi. Shamika Rishi. So he was in deep meditation. He had his eyes closed and he was just meditating. And by the effect of Kali Yuga, King Parikshit, he felt some anger because as Kali Yuga was progressing. Because if you think about it, he's a Kshatriya. If we take the example of Karna, how when he was, his spiritual master was sleeping on his lap, and he endured, there was like a kind of scorpion, right? It was biting him and he endured all of his, like, Kshatriyas, they can take it. What is like 3 days of hunger, 2 days of hunger? King Parikshit, he traveled the whole world, but he said because of the influence of Kali, he couldn't tolerate this. So when he came to the sage, he asked him, can I have some water? He's the king, can I have some water? And the sage was in deep meditation, and there was no response. So at that time, King Parikshit, he was in doubt, and he thought, is he for real? Is he really in meditation, or is he ignoring me on purpose? Right? And at that time, he felt a bit of anger, and he took his bow, like his bow and arrow, and there was a dead snake, and he took that snake and he put it on the sage's shoulder, and then he just left. Right? And afterwards, when the sage woke up, he was not bothered. He said, oh, he wasn't bothered. He was in deep meditation. He wasn't really bothered. There was a snake on him. He just took the snake and he said, okay. He just threw it away. But that sage had a son, and this son was called Shringi. And Shringi, he was a Brahmana. He had all the qualities of a Brahmana. He had all the power of a Brahmana, but however, he didn't have the maturity. So he still had pride in his heart. And because he had pride in his heart, under the influence of Kali, and his pride, he couldn't take it. He said, who does this king think of himself? Who does he think he is? He did this to my father, and he cursed King Parikshit. And King Parikshit was cursed, and he would die within 7 days. And King Parikshit, he could have retaliated. He was a king. He could have brought 10,000 soldiers and just get rid of these Brahmins or whatsoever. But he accepted. He was humble. By nature, he was a devotee. He accepted. And he just went, was it Ganges? By the banks of the river Ganges? Yeah. And he decided to spend his days to focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he only had 7 days. So then all the rishis, all the sages, the great sages of the time, they assembled in this place, right? And they came to pay respect to King Parikshit, because he was one of the greatest kings. And this is when Shukadev Goswami turned up, and the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken in 7 days to King Parikshit. So this is like the beginning. This is how Srimad Bhagavatam started. It started with this. But now coming back to this verse, it is said that the 4 principles of religion is austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So what does everyone think about this? How many people think, so okay, so let's take the first one. Let's take austerity, right? So how many of you think, how many of you are practicing austerity? How many think austerity is good, or is it bad? And what is the purpose of austerity?
It's certainly beneficial, but it's not always easy.
It's beneficial, but it's not always easy. Sorry, I'm just gonna write this down. So we say it's beneficial and it's not always easy. But how is it beneficial?
Could be your sadhana and your spiritual life.
So it helps with your sadhana. And how does it help with the sadhana? Anyone?
My point was something different.
Oh, it was something different. Okay, no problem. So yes, just go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that in one sense, everyone's performing austerities,
Yeah.
but often people's austerities are not voluntary. So, for instance, if you're working, maybe you have to get up at 4 o'clock to go to work. That's quite an austerity, but it's kind of a forced austerity. Or, a mother has to get up in the middle of the night to, feed the baby or this or that. In one sense, that's kind of like a forced austerity. Sometimes you just want to sleep and it's like, oh my God, the baby's crying. But I was thinking austerity kind of generally means like, you're having to get out of your comfort zone. And so therefore it's beneficial because often growth really takes place when we get out of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people now are doing like cold water therapy, they're having a cold bath in the morning, and you're having to get out of your comfort zone, so it increases your determination, it helps to, it increases your courage, and growth generally takes place when there's some resistance, like in the gym. If you're lifting heavy weights, there's growth. If you're not really lifting much, then there's no real growth. So austerities can be either voluntary or they can be forced, but they're beneficial because they force us out of our comfort zone, and that's where growth takes place.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you, Chaitanya.
Well, it nourishes your mind
Oh,
or body.
nice. Nourishes your mind and body. So that's really nice.
Sorry, you also asked how is it beneficial for our sadhana? Well, in the context of spiritual life, it means you're putting aside what you want to do for the pleasure or for a higher principle. So in this case, we're doing what Krishna wants us to do rather than what we want to do. Getting out of our comfort zone because it's pleasing to Krishna, not necessarily because it's pleasing to our mind and senses. But if it's pleasing to Krishna, it will be pleasing to the soul.
Yeah, that's nice. So for the pleasure of Krishna. So that's really nice. So what we got for austerity, it's beneficial. There's forced austerity, there's voluntary austerity. But austerity, it helps us get out of our comfort zone. And what are the benefits of austerity? So by performing austerity, we get determination, we get courage, we enable growth through austerity, and we also nourish our body and mind for a higher purpose, which is the pleasure of Krishna. And I also thought like one thing about austerity, it's basically we are abstaining from something, right? So I see even lots of you are just sitting on the floor now. So that's an austerity, right? We could just pull up these 2 settees from there and say, yeah, we'll be more comfortable, But we're performing this austerity and we're happy. And austerity means we become happy with simple things. So we don't need a lot to be happy. This is one advantage of austerity, isn't it? So that's in line with what Prabhupada says. Simple thinking, simple living, high thinking. Right? So if we're used to a life of austerity, we live simple. It doesn't take a lot to be happy. So that's really nice. And at the same time, Krishna also says austerity needs to be performed, like in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? And what about mercy? So anyone else who hasn't said anything? So how can we practice mercy? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And what are the benefits of practicing mercy? Shravan Krishna.
So I wanted to add for austerity actually.
Oh,
But it's
okay, yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
So basically, my understanding, like for austerity, is like if you look at a soldier or a sportsman, they tend to practice during before an event can take place. Like a soldier, he doesn't face a war every day, but he needs to be prepared.
So it's a form of training,
It's a
basically.
form of a training. So
Yeah.
when the doomsday or the D-Day comes,
Yeah.
he has to be ready with.
So austerity helps us to get ready for the call.
Yes.
So that's basically part of our, is it prayujana? Right?
Yeah, preparedness
Yeah.
for us to face
So
the ultimate.
it helps us carry on to reach the goal, basically. Yeah, so that's nice. That's a nice point, thank you. So coming back to mercy, does anyone have anything to say on mercy? How do we practice mercy? Yes.
Association prasadam.
Association?
Prasadam.
Association with prasadam.
Taking prasadam.
Taking prasad.
Mercy of Lord.
Oh, so that's mercy of the Lord. No, but that's the Lord giving you mercy. How can we do? Yes.
Practice non-violence.
Practice non-violence. Wow, that's a good start. So we have non-violence. And can we expand a little bit on that? So how can we practice non-violence?
No animal killing or eating.
You hammered already, name right on top there. So no animal killing. Yeah, so that's it for mercy. And it is said no meat eating, basically. So that's how we can be merciful, right? And moving on to truthfulness. So how can we do that? How can we practice truthfulness? Yes?
Not tell lies.
No lies. Okay. And have we got anything else?
Not
Yeah, don't feel shy, guys. You can, So how can we be truthful? How can we be truthful and yes?
Speaking truth, keeping the name truth.
Sorry, can
Speaking truth
speak the truth?
and giving many names of the human truth.
Speak the truth.
Yeah, like my mother name is Truth.
So you name someone truth.
Yeah, every day.
Okay, giving names. That's nice.
Everybody speaks truth, you see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
No gambling.
No gambling.
Because it means dishonesty.
Yeah. No gambling. Yeah, so this is the truth. And
No cheating.
no cheating. Yeah, that's nice.
I would like to add to that one. I think when you speak the truth, you only will be scared that one time. But when you tell lies, you will be always scared because you will never be able to know what lies you told.
You have to remember your life.
So when you tell truth, you will only be scared that one time, but after that your mind will be free.
Yeah. So basically speaking lies is putting yourself in trouble, right?
Danger.
Yeah, so that's really nice. But the scriptures say truthfulness, it says no gambling, right? And then we got the last one is cleanliness. So how can we practice cleanliness? Yes.
Clean. Be clean, mind and body.
Be clean, mind and body. Yeah, that's right. Mind and body. Anyone else?
Chanting. Clean mind.
Chanting clears the mind.
Taking a shower.
Shower. What else? Taking prasadam. Yeah. So from what we get there, cleanliness we've got different types of cleanliness. We've got external cleanliness and we've got internal cleanliness. So external cleanliness, we have to keep our body clean, we have to keep the place clean, especially if anyone is doing daily worship, there's a particular standard of cleanliness that needs to be there in daily worship. And also by chanting of our mantra, we can keep our mind clear by eating prasadam. You know, we can cleanse all our anarthas and things like that, because we are focusing on Krishna. But that's very nice. Yes.
Sorry, you may have made the point, but I was going to say it's easier to practice our internal cleanliness if we have external cleanliness. Well, did someone make that point?
No.
So, like for instance, if you have a lot of like clutter or things in your room, it's called visual noise. You know what I mean? So when you look at it, it's a lot like harder to focus your mind and work, or to do your study or your chanting or whatever, if you're surrounded by external uncleanliness. So when you have clean surroundings, it's easier then to focus on your internal cleanliness. And it works both ways. Prabhupada said, when there is external mess, that's also a sign that internally we're a bit of a mess.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you for the point.
So if there is a mess outside, so where are you need to start first? Inside or outside?
So if there's a mess externally,
If there is people living in a mess outside and inside, so to have
in which order
start
does
this
it work?
cleanliness, so where do we need to start first, from inside or outside?
I can answer that question.
Oh.
Normally, it says that whatever, it depends on the senses that we take the things. Just by saying that we need to be a clean soul, it doesn't happen. What we see, what we do, what we touch, what we feel, those are the ones. So for example, for children, we say that my child is not doing these things, I'm just giving an example. But we don't stop them from watching TikTok, Snapchats, or whatever these OTT platforms. It is like whatever the senses that you provide them, they need to be much more pure, means like much more, you need to have an overview, so that whatever the things that they take, like for example satsang, we come here, we spend this 3 hours trying to chant, so this is how we will be able to correlate. If you are bringing the children, then they will be also able to learn from this. That's one of the reasons they say, how you associate with the things. If you are in the company of good people, you will be able to turn good. Eventually they will turn. So that's how you will be able to. External sources does play a factor in trying to determine how you will be able to cleanse your internal.
So there's also the practicality of it, because some things are easy to clean. Say if you've got a mess in your room, it might take you like 15 minutes to clean. But internally, sometimes it might take a whole lifetime to clean. Internally, so. Yeah, so can you talk about this? You already started now?
I was just going to say that sometimes it's like they both help one another. So for instance, when we're chanting Hare Krishna, it purifies us internally, and then that brings us more to the mode of goodness or pure goodness. So when we're in a higher state of consciousness, we naturally want to keep our surroundings cleaner. So like when we wake up in the morning, if we make our bed, and then it's like the room looks kind of nicer, doesn't it, you know? If we just keep the bed unmade all day, that's more like a symptom of the mode of like ignorance. No shade thrown at anyone, sometimes, you know what I mean? You know, we're all guilty of these things, but the point is that they're symptomatic, but they also help. It's easier to be internally clean if we have external cleanliness, and it's easier to have external cleanliness if we have internal cleanliness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the work in...
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Like, I've got 2 teenagers in the house, so I know about the sins. And what I find is that you think to yourself, what strategy should I use? Should I tidy the room for them? Or should I just let them live in their squalor? But what I realised is, no, you've got to get them in the right mind frame, and they're never going to get in the right mind frame in an untidy room. Clean the room for them, give them that mental space, and then good things will come. Because I think your surroundings very much affect your mindset.
Yeah, like it's practical. So whatever we can do first, which is the fastest, so we do that, and at the same time. So I think it needs to go both together. You know, cleanliness, when you clean everywhere. And like Gopal Alabi was saying, there's a good example of how Lord Chaitanya cleaned for Gundicha temple. Well, this is also, you know, he picks every little grain of sand one by one out of this temple. But it's an example of how we need to clean our heart.
But he started from the temple and then he started to clean outside as well.
Yeah, so he started from the temple and then he started. So what you're saying is he started from the heart, right? And then he became external. Yeah, sometimes it makes sense because if we have a consciousness to be clean, internally we want to be clean, then it manifests externally. So from internal it comes external, right? So automatically, if we want to be clean internally, then externally it will manifest as well. But sometimes we have to push ourselves, which I'm going to come to in a minute, you know. We have to push ourselves in the beginning, because in the beginning we don't have much internally, so we need to focus on the external as well, right? So that we can acquire what's something internal. But do we need to finish up around 5, right?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
play
Okay, so well, there's a little bit of ground to cover, but coming back to the 4 principles of religion, which is austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So we will have various ideas, what it is, how to put it in practice, what we can do. But one thing is we need to realize that these things are cultivated, right? So these things are cultivated, and in order to be able to cultivate these things, like the Shastra, Srimad Bhagavatam says, to be able to cultivate mercy. So we can say, yeah, mercy, we can help people, we have so many ideas for mercy, how to be merciful, right? But to start with, it says we shouldn't eat any meat. So there shouldn't be no meat eating. Because if we're eating meat, then whatever we're feeding ourselves is coming from suffering. So how can we be merciful if what we're putting in our own body is suffering, right? So it says to be merciful, we shouldn't eat any meat. To be truthful, we shouldn't gamble, because gamble is full of deceit, and you know, we're just thinking about winning, right? It's deceitful, so it says no gambling. So to be austere, we can't have any intoxication, because when you're intoxicated, we just think about ourselves, right? We might be intoxicated. I don't know how many of you got experience with being intoxicated, but we never think about tomorrow. We might have 200 pounds which we've kept for next week, and we get intoxicated and say, well, we might as well just use it now, you know, let's have fun. And even if you're intoxicated right now, you're all behaving properly and you're seated properly in your seat, but if we were intoxicated, we'd probably be lying on the ground, right? So there's no austerity if we're practicing intoxication. There's no austerity. And to be clean, it says we shouldn't practice any illicit sex. So illicit sex is, we see it's advertised everywhere, in adverts, you know, on the news, everywhere. It's provoking, right? But the thing is, we can't maintain cleanliness of the mind if we're objectifying people, right? Because we see the opposite sex as something to use for our own sensual pleasure, you know, which spiritually is not the case. So this is it's called the 4 regulative principles. So someday if some of you decide to get initiated, this is one of the promises you make. There's only 2 promises you make. One is to chant a minimum of 16 rounds every day, and the second one is to follow the 4 regulative principles. So, you know, but in the beginning, like I said, it's also referring to cleanliness. In the beginning, Prabhupada says it's a bit like jaundice, right? Jaundice is a particular disease where sugar tastes bitter. But the intrinsic nature of sugar is that it's sweet, right? But if we're suffering from jaundice, it's difficult to eat sugar because it's bitter, it tastes bitter. So similarly, to be able to practice the 4 principles of religion, in the beginning, we really have to give it a push because it's like we've got jaundice. So even though it's nectar, it's like sugar, when we're trying to implement this in our lives, it's very bitter. You know, but eventually, like in jaundice, as you eat sugar, you keep going, then the jaundice goes away, and you can actually taste the sweetness. And by practicing these 4, everyone is practicing, but if you put it on top of what we're already doing spiritually, then we can taste the sweetness of the results of what we do. But again, these things, it's not like you just do a somersault and acquire all of this in one day. You know, so anyone who is practicing, it's okay. Anyone who's practicing maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 regulative principles, maybe some can't practice any regulative principles at all, but you shouldn't feel bad and think like, oh, everyone else is doing it and I can't do it. You know, because it takes time. And one of the things is to control, so basically it's all related to the senses, right? In the Bhagavad Gita was saying by contemplating the objects of the senses, lust manifests. Can you say this verse? Does anyone have this verse? By contemplating the object of the senses,
One becomes attracted to them.
Attachment develops, and then from attachment there's lust, right?
And when the lust is not satisfied,
Yeah, when the lust is not satisfied, then we become angry, we become bewildered, and eventually it leads right down to madness. Right? So it all starts from by contemplating the object of the senses. So to be able to practice these 4 regulative principles, we need, in a way, to control the senses. And how do we control the senses?
I've got the verses if you want them to.
Oh yeah, it would be nice if you say it. Yeah.
Okay, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool.
Yeah, so that's a nice one. But if you come back to the beginning of this verse, by contemplating the object of the senses, that's when we get attachment and then we become lusty for them. So that's when we can apply this, you know. And to control the senses, so Arjuna, he tells Krishna, to control the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind. Right? Yeah, I'm trying to squeeze all this through because I haven't got so much time, but I don't know if you guys came across this picture. There's a chariot with 5 horses, and then there's one person holding the reins, and then there's a passenger at the back. And these 5 horses represent our 5 senses, right? And the rein is the mind, and the person holding the rein is the intelligence, and the person on the back is the soul. Right? So basically, the soul is the passenger, and the intelligence is holding the rein, which is the mind. So the intelligence controls the mind, and then the mind controls the senses. So to be able to control the senses, to practice the 4 regulating principles, we need to be able to control the mind. And if the mind is more difficult to control than the wind, so how are we going to do that?
Sharpen the intelligence.
Sharpen the intelligence? How? With a sword. What sword do we use to sharpen the intelligence? The sword of transcendental knowledge, right? So it all culminates to taking shelter of Krishna, right? Because sometimes these things we can't achieve them by ourselves. We need the mercy of Krishna. And one thing I've also realized is it's a really nice meditation. One of the names of Krishna is Rishikesh, which means he's the controller of the senses. So it's a nice meditation. I don't know how many of you do it, but if you wake up in the morning and you're putting tilak in all the places of your body, 12 different places, to mark the body as a temple of the soul. We say the names of Krishna. So we start with the Om Keshavaya Namaha. Keshavaya means one who has the most beautiful hair. So it's a really nice meditation on Krishna. He's got the most beautiful hair. Om Narayana Namaha. Narayana is the shelter of man, right? Om Keshavaya Namaha. Om Narayana Namaha. Om Madhavaya Namaha. He who is as sweet as honey. Right? Om Govindaya Namaha. It helps us meditate on Krishna as a coward boy. Om Madhusudanaya Namaha. Helps us meditate on Krishna as the killer of Madhu demon. Right? How did he kill the Madhu demon? The Madhu demon is representative of illusion. Right? So Krishna is also one who takes the illusion away. Right? And then we get Trivikramayana Namaha, Trivikramayana, he who takes 3 steps. So Krishna is the one who conquered the whole universe in 3 steps, in the form of Vamana. So it's a really nice meditation. These are called the primary names of Krishna. So it's a really nice meditation. It's not just like a ritual thing where, we're just marking our body and things like that, but it's a really nice meditation, and if we do it in the morning, it's really helpful to get us in the right state of mind and to take shelter of Krishna in that way. But also Chaitanya told me to, today's Easter. So he told me, maybe you can kind of relate this lecture. And I was thinking, how do I really relate this to Easter? I'm not from a Christian background myself, but I know quite a few things from the Bible. I've heard about the 10 Commandments and things like that. And I thought, okay, let me just take a look how I can relate this to the Bible, to Jesus. But then it turns out, Jesus, well, first of all, if we scroll a few verses from the verse that we've done, in the Bhagavatam, it also says that the principles of religion, of Dharma, it doesn't apply to a single religion. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, whatever religion you are, you can still apply these principles of religion, right? It's going to be beneficial. And I was thinking, Jesus, he also preached the principles of religion according to time, place, and circumstance. Because he said, thou shalt not kill. And this is mercy. He preached about mercy. Yeah? He said, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. So he was like into propagating monogamy, like he was hinting that there shouldn't be any illicit sex. Right? And what about cleanliness? He also preached about cleanliness. And Jesus was austere himself. He didn't walk around with a bottle of wine in his left hand and with a bong in his right hand, right? he was austere. So he was preaching the principles of religion, and what happened to him? They crucified him for that. Right? And when they crucified him, his body died, they buried him. And today, on Easter, he came back. I don't want to speculate on that, but whether he came back in a spiritual body. Because when he came back, he went to God, right? So you can't go to God unless you got like a spiritual body. So this is one of those things. So I thought, okay, I took a look, and one of the verses I stumbled upon, it's James 1/2-4, right? It says, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Yeah? So when you meet trials of various kinds, and I was relating this to the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's a little bit like trials of various kinds. We're struggling to implement these 4 regulative principles of Dharma, right? We meet many trials because we get tested. We're trying to be austere, but then we get tested and we have to struggle really hard to be austere, to be clean, to be, But by doing that, the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. So when we test our faith, we get steadfastness. And in our scriptures, what is steadfastness? Steadfastness is the platform of Nishta, right? Nishta means steadiness. So we start with Sadhusanga, and Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, Anatta Nivriti, and then we go on the platform of Nishta. And what is Anatta Nivriti? Anatta Nivriti is getting rid of unwanted things. And all these things are unwanted. Illicit sex, right? These 4 things we talk about. No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. These are all unwanted things. And this is basically the anarthas. There are other subtle anarthas, like we might want to go to the heavenly planets, we might want name and fame, and these are subtle, but the gross anarthas, it's these four things. So once if we get rid of those anarthas, what's after? It's the platform of Nishta, right? So there's Nishtita Bhajan and there's Anishtita Bhajan. Anishtita Bhajan is when we're trying to do devotional service. Bhajan, when I say Bhajan, it means Bhajana Kriya, it means devotional service. So we're trying to carry out devotional service, but sometimes we stop because our anarthas are pulling us out. So that's Anishtita Bhajan. It's not on the platform of Nishta. But if we can go past this anartha nivriti phase and we come to the platform of Nishtita Bhajan, this is absolutely amazing. That's the start. It's the start of something else. Because if we look at the phases of chanting, there's Nama Prag, there's Nama Bas, and then there's Shuddhanam. And Shuddhanam, you can see Krishna face to face when you're chanting Shuddhanam. And what is Nama Bas? Nama Bas is getting rid of our anarthas, right? Isn't it? So once we get rid of our anarthas, we're on the Nishta platform. So that's one step closer to Krishna, one step closer to chanting Shuddhanam. So this is absolutely amazing. And this is the importance also of how it can help us to, because I was in a lecture the other day and Prabhu, it was with Prabhu lecture, and he was saying most people get in that cycle of anartha nivriti and you just stay in there, you don't come out of the other side. So you go in and your whole life you just keep getting rid of these anarthas. They never come out of the other side, But if we give it a push and we beg for mercy, so it's amazing. I mean, at least I'm begging. I'm begging. But then also we got coming to, I think we got time to squeeze that in. Coming to the illicit sex. This is the most difficult one. Because even in the scriptures it says that it's because of sex that we fell down to a material world. Yeah, because of sex, that's why we fell down. Right? And there's also, in regards to that, there's also the story of Cupid, Kamadev. Do you guys want to hear the story? Yeah? So Cupid he's actually real. You heard of Cupid, yeah? The little guy with he shoots his arrows and then people start to fall in love and things like that. So Cupid is actually real, right? And once he tried to shoot an arrow at Lord Shiva, because at that time Lord Shiva wasn't really interested in Parvati, and he tried, but Lord Shiva is a different type than himself, and so I shouldn't love, but Lord Shiva burned him. He burned Cupid's body, right? Because he wasn't very happy with what Cupid was trying to do. So with his third eye, he just burned his body. So Cupid had no body. So he was basically in a ghostly state. He only had his subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and false ego. But one day, Cupid was bored. And why was he bored? Because he had incited lust in the hearts of all living beings in the material world. So he was bored. He had nothing to do, right? And then he met some demigods. And these demigods, they told him, well, there's one person, right? You will not be able to have any impact on him, right? And this person is on earth, right? And you won't be able to impact him. And Cupid, he took this as a challenge. He was like, well, who's that person? And when they got to him, well, he's Krishna and he's in Vrindavan. Right? So Cupid says, okay. So he took it as a challenge, and he said, okay, he will basically try to incite lust in Krishna's heart. So he went there. He had no body, so he just went to the forest, entered the forest of Vrindavan. And when Cupid came, he had 4 assets with him. He had 4 weapons, right? So the first weapon was spring. The second weapon he had was cuckoo birds. Then he had humming bees. And then he had a soft breeze. So he went to Vrindavan, he entered the forest, and at this time it was summertime in Vrindavan. And Krishna and Radha, they were in the Rasa dance arena, they were dancing. So then Cupid, he sent spring. So all of a sudden summer turned to spring. And spring is like, it is said, spring has the opulences of the Prince of Seasons. Right? I heard this from a lecture from Indra Maharaj, which is amazing. I would recommend you all listen to that. But yeah, so he says when spring came through, and spring in general, after winter and spring, people feel enlivened, right? In spring. And it is said, so Radha and Krishna, they felt enlivened, and they started singing a song, right? So then Cupid sent his pet cuckoo. So he's got a cuckoo bird, and this cuckoo bird sings in the 5th note. And the 5th note, it's basically supposed to invoke amorous feelings within somebody. And that cuckoo, he went, and he started to sing. But then Radha and Krishna, they just started to imitate that cuckoo. Instead of getting affected by that, they started to imitate the cuckoo. So that was a failure as well, so the cuckoo failed. So then Cupid sent the humming bees, right? And when he sent the humming bees, they had no effect either. And he could see that both Radha and Krishna, they were glowing, right? And the body was radiating a pure and sublime goodness that didn't have the slightest trace of passion, lust, or ignorance. So this is the aura from their body. You know, so then Cupid sent the breeze, the soft breeze from the Malayan hills, and this breeze was infused with the smell of incense, right? So what about perfume? People normally use perfume originally to attract the opposite sex, right? Maybe sometimes we use it to mask others now, but the primary purpose of perfume is to be attractive, right? So Cupid sent this breeze, you know, and then just like a presence, Radharani, she purified this breeze. She made it pure, so it had no effect. So these 4 weapons didn't have any effect, and Cupid started shooting arrows at Krishna. He started shooting his arrows, and Cupid has a wound. So he's got like Arjuna, his quiver of arrows is endless. So he never runs out of arrows. But Cupid has a quiver where when he sends an arrow, that arrow comes back to his quiver. But when he sent the arrows to Krishna, it was actually just entering Krishna's body. It was getting absorbed. And he said like it was getting absorbed like when you're throwing a pebble in a raging river. It just disappeared. So all his arrows disappeared. And Cupid didn't know what was going on, but Krishna knew what was going on. All the gopis, they didn't see Cupid because he didn't have a body, but Krishna knew what was happening. And then he said Krishna started playing on his flute, right? And that sound of the flute got into Cupid's ears, right? And it started to have an impact on him. You know, so Cupid was starting to feel like devotional manifestations, right? But when Krishna revealed himself to Cupid, he reveals his true form, and at that time Cupid could actually feel what the gopis were feeling for Krishna. Right? So this is, Maharaj says this is causeless mercy. Causeless, because there's no cause for it, you know? He just gave it. So Cupid could feel the love of a gopis had for Krishna. But when it is said, even though he could experience this, he couldn't gain entrance in Vrindavan. He got bewildered and he got knocked out. He fell unconscious. And why he didn't get entrance in Vrindavan? Because Cupid, he didn't have pure devotion. So he couldn't sustain his feelings because he had mixed devotion. So he got bewildered eventually and he fell down. Right? So the moral of the story is basically where the divine couple is present, there's no influence of lust. There's no influence, so we cannot be lusty where the divine couple is present. Right? But then we might think the divine couple might be in Vrindavan, they might be in the deities, but then they are also in the Maha Mantra. Right? So this is something we can take with us all the time. We can chant the Maha Mantra, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So then we are protected. This is the power of the mantra. Just like in the Ramayana Leela, Lakshman, he took out his sword and he drew a circle around Sita, right? And he chanted a mantra, and with the power of this mantra, Sita was protected as long as she was inside, by Lakshman Rekha. But if she stepped outside, that's when Ravana was able to take her. But what if she was inside? Even the most powerful demon couldn't take her. So this is the power of mantra. As long as we're chanting, we are protected from everything. You know? So I'm going to close on this, and it's time as well. If there's any questions or reflections.
Why did he Rama lost?
Sorry?
Why did he Rama lost? And how did he do that?
Why did Ravan
How
lose?
did he ask if he cut the come? How?
Well, there was Marichi. Right? Marichi was a demon, and he disguised himself as a deer.
That's right.
You played Marichi, right?
Yeah.
Deer had a so much smell.
So at this time,
In fact, now he called it Sima Bhatta. So that is how he used the senses, right? And he didn't know that his umbilical could only be removed by Ram.
right?
You know that this animal, the
Sorry.
golden deer they have killed. People
Yeah.
they have killed the animal killer there. So they have got such a good incense that whosoever he gets it, okay? So he played the trick onto that, okay? He left some deer there and they smell. So she was very fond of it.
Yeah.
That's how he
So the deer was mimicking Lord
Yeah,
Ram's
that's how he
pose,
did
and before Lord Ram had a
But
problem,
he didn't.
Lord Lakshman knew
That's
that
correct.
it was impossible, but
Yeah. No,
Sita insisted.
he
So that's
got
why
in some other way. So
Sorry.
that way.
So that's when he drew his strike out,
That's right.
and he told Sita not to step out, and he went to kill this demon basically.
So
Thank
that's
you.
what he said. Their what you call it, their intellect, poor intellect. Okay? They still killer. There are few rich people in India. Okay? Right? They take class and very good and very good. They have killed one, they are caught up. They have been imprisoned, and they have got enormous money. You know, their life is spoiled. Just because of false sense and false ego.
Yeah.
I know because they come to the medics, okay? Why did you do that? So they have to commit how? So when they commit, then you are locked up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So do we have any other questions? Yes. Or reflections?
No question. I travelled up this afternoon from Rica on the train,
Yeah.
and there was also young ladies all dressed up to go party, and it was agitating the senses, so I got my knees.
So that's nice. You take shelter. Yeah, because everyone is followed by this. I was reading about this. It is said like our anarthas, they will follow us until we get a spiritual body. You know, so all the way until Baba, the stage of Baba. So the anarthas are still going to be there, and we have examples of many great personalities who fell down from really high stages of bhakti. There was one sage who got attached to a deer and he fell down, and another one seen fishers copulating and he just fell down when he's saying this. So we always need to be careful. Once Prabhupada always said, he told his disciples, you're not scared of Maya enough. You know, so we always need to, you know, as soon as we become proud, just like with this Brahmana, Shringi, Shamika's son, as soon as he had pride in his heart, so Kali used that pride to make him curse Lord Parikshit. So as soon as we get pride in our heart, then that's something where Kali can infiltrate, sorry. So it's nice to take shelter. So that's I should take example from you, you know. So whenever we feel like we are being distracted, we are being influenced by unfavorable things, we need to take shelter of Krishna. This is nice. Thank you. Kieran? I thought you were raising your hands there.
I wasn't, but I can ask a question actually then.
Yeah.
Sure. You must have known there was probably one in there. I think I was just massaging my leg. What, you know, we talk a lot about knowing this sex, but what is the opposite? What's permitted sex? Like, is it? I mean, I'm gonna guess I know the answer, but it would be nice to know something more specific from an ISKCON point of view.
Yeah. So I just bring up this verse. Sorry, I'm not very fluent in my Sanskrit. But Krishna in Bhagavad Gita he says, Balam Balavatam Chaham Kama Raga Vijajitam Dharma Virudo Bhutishu Kamashmi Balatar Shabha. So I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of Bharatas. So he's speaking to Arjuna and he's saying he is sex life which is not contrary to our religious principles. So in our religious principles, it doesn't say that we don't need to have sex at all. You know, there are different, I mean, if you are brahmachari or you're sannyasi, then this is a renunciation where you take a vow not to have sex, but we have different orders. So for grihastas, if you join the grihastha ashram, basically you have a license to have sex for the propagation of children. So this is where Krishna says, have sex, which is devoid of the principles of religion. Yeah. So I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I guess.
Because also
it does pretty much. Sorry.
Yeah, because in the beginning also, if I can find this verse, but Arjuna speaks to, he was reluctant to go to war, and he was saying the results of this war is gonna, create so much havoc, and it's gonna create unwanted progeny. Because when there's illicit sex, there's also unwanted progeny, right? Like accidental births, and then it gives rise to people want to do abortions. It's more sin coming across, So this is one of the reasons as well.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I guess I had other questions there actually a little bit, but I don't know. Like for example. What about if you're sort of in a relationship, like an older relationship, sort of plus 60, if you're a partner of plus 60 sort of thing, no chance of a baby there.
Yeah, but plus 60 is a bit not much ability in a way, right? in a way, right? So it's time,
Yeah.
It's time, because it also says like women need shelter. So in a relationship, it's not only based on sex, it's also based on giving shelter to each other and also using each other to practice our spiritual life. See, so in a relationship, it's not like Krishna is in the center, but in the material world, sex is in the center. So this is why there's so many divorces, there's so many temporary relationships because it's all revolving around sex. Do you know, as soon as the body loses its luster, because we're all going to grow old, you know, this body is temporary, beauty is temporary, you know, whatever attractiveness we've got, that's temporary. Do you know, so if we build a relationship based on temporary things, then obviously it's going to be temporary as well.
Yeah.
You know, so in a matter of fact, it's basically fake, it's not truthful either.
I just had a realization just as you were talking there. I just made some major connections, so thank you for that, Robin. And I think the realization I had was that although it's the hardest principle for us to follow, perhaps that's why it's the most rewarding one to actually, because for me, I just find like the more and more I stick to the religious principles, the closer I get to Krishna I feel, and very quickly as well. It's not like if I don't drink for a few weeks, it's like if I really renounce sex for a few weeks, you know, just that short amount of time.
You can experience it.
Feel, so much.
Like George Harrison said, the proof of eating is in the pudding, right? So once you put it in action, you can feel it, like the reciprocation of Krishna. This is amazing, yeah? Yeah, this is it. And also, one thing, we shouldn't be discouraged, even though if we can't practice this in the beginning or even after a long time, because one thing is, we shouldn't let things that we can't do stop us from doing things that we can do. You know, so the things we can't do shouldn't prevent us from doing what we can do. And also, an example is if we've got, say if I've got a cup of muddy water, right? If I keep pouring clean water in it, just keep pouring it, eventually the water will be clean inside. So all the muddy water will overflow and there'll only be clean water inside. So similarly, you know, sometimes it's not our primary. So if we focus on Krishna, and we keep doing what we're doing, we keep doing devotional service, we keep doing our sadhana, and then we keep putting the effort in. Eventually, you know, it will cleanse everything. You know, so Prabhupada also says when we start chanting, it is a tug of war with Maya. Everyone knows what a tug of war is? It's like they're pulling ropes, right? So Maya's pulling and you are pulling, but he says, but eventually Krishna will win. So we just need to stick to it and do our best, do what we can, you know. Yeah, but it's already 5, so we're going to end here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Yes. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Grace Vrajendra Nandana Prabhu ki Jai.